One of Canada's top diplomats is retiring today. Peter Boehm has represented Canada around the globe for 37 years. I spoke to him earlier this week. This is Peter Boehm, most recently the Prime Minister's personal representative at international summits. You may not have noticed him on the margins of this well-known photo, but more on that meeting later. Boehm started his diplomatic career at the Canadian embassies in Cuba and Costa Rica. He's been the Canadian ambassador to Germany and the OAS and the top bureaucrat in charge of international aid. Boehm is retiring after nearly 4 decades in the Foreign Service.
When you look back 37 years ago, did you think back then or in the years that preceded the start of your career that this is what you would be doing?
No, I didn't, quite frankly. Like many who join, we say, well, we'll give it a shot. We'll try it for 5 or 6 years. And certainly all my classmates said that when we joined the Foreign Service. And everybody is on the verge or has retired, so we stuck with it.
What do you think the key to your success was?
I don't know. Maybe it's just perseverance and patience and right spot at the right time. Maybe.
What has been the most exciting part of your job?
I think certainly working with leaders in my Sherpa capacity. I've worked very closely with the past 4 prime ministers, and rounding it off now with Mr. Trudeau. That has been a privilege and an honor, because if you are with your leader at an international meeting and you are the only other person on the Canadian side of the room with him, that is a rather special moment.
Has politics ever impacted that relationship, or is it difficult to parse it out from the relationship?
Politics are always there, because the government of the day will have policies that it is advancing, and it's our job, it's the job of the public service, and certainly if you're an ambassador or an advisor, to present options and then implement the decisions that the political level takes.
Have you ever been uncomfortable with any of those decisions that you had to implement, or how do you see your job if you are uncomfortable?
I think you always give it your best shot. Whether you're uncomfortable or not, you have to realize this is my government. This is the government that has been voted in by Canadians, and I am pushing forward an international initiative that has been presented by this government, and I give it everything I've got.
Boehm's career spanned major world events too, the biggest, 9/11. Boehm was working at the U.S. Embassy in Washington that day.
I was in the number 3 slot in our embassy in Washington at that time. It was scary, because the world changed, and it was changing right where we were. So we were having a discussion with the ambassador, with Mr. Kurgan, who was our ambassador at the time, our senior people, and we looked out and we saw smoke on the horizon. That was the plane that hit the Pentagon. We were in the midst of a softwood lumber discussion at the time. Those issues never go away. But you are then in a situation where you think, goodness, the world is changing. There is a threat, and then of course you worry about your family. Where's my spouse? Where are the children? So it's something that really hit hard. So that was one that really stands out in my memory.
Did it change your view of things, your approach to things?
It certainly changed my work, because I was in as the Minister of Political and Public Affairs, so it was all about foreign policy, and then all became about borders and security, and making our border work better, and getting our message across, especially to U.S. legislators, that the terrorists did not in fact come from Canada. So the public diplomacy aspect was very, very important. And of course, during my career, I found that public diplomacy has really, really become more important, because when I started, there wasn't a 24/7 news cycle.
Boehm's swan song certainly fits that bill. He served as Canada's point man, its Sherpa, for the G7 summit this summer in Quebec, the one that led U.S. President Donald Trump to call Prime Minister Justin Trudeau meek, mild, and dishonest.
We did manage to get a communique. When I was on your show before, I wasn't sure, or maybe I was slightly evasive, because we were still negotiating. Do we do a chair statement? Do we do a communique that everyone can agree to? we did come out with 7 major initiatives.
So that's a very diplomatic answer.
Thank you.
which I anticipated, of course, but I'm wondering from the outside, there was a lot that happened in that meeting that was
Yes.
reported on, and I'm just wondering what your perspective on it was.
I think it was, in substantive terms, the best summit that we've had in a long time. But if you look back at the ones that Canada has hosted, they've all been pretty good. They've all had good initiatives. 2010, the last one, had the maternal and child health initiative from Mr. Harper. This year we had several initiatives to push things forward. The question is, how do we implement? And the implementation is taking place. So an agenda moves forward, whether or not tweets have been sent out to repudiate or to clarify. It's moving forward. I was just in Paris 2 weeks ago. We are passing the flambeau, the torch, to the French for next year, and they're going to take on and carry forward a lot that we have begun here.
In the face of that U.S. withdrawal or retreat or whatever you want to call it, what's your advice to those taking up the helm of the G7 in France?
To do what we did with the United States. We were engaged at all levels. I was certainly on the phone with my Sherpa colleague in Washington, with others in the State Department. I would go there, go to the White House, meet with people. I think keeping the channels of communication open are very important. And yeah, we can agree to disagree on a few issues. That's well known.
Despite the diplomatic ups and downs, Boehm says a career in the Foreign Service is worth it.
You get to see the world and appreciate what's out there and the challenges, the thematic challenges that we have internationally. And you develop a really stronger view of your own sense of self and your own identity as a Canadian. So for me, there's no bigger thrill than being at an international meeting and sitting behind the sign that says Canada. That's kind of a special moment.
And if you were to give them advice, not just about the good parts of the job, but sort of what they should be prepared for, or one piece of advice that you think that they may not naturally come to, what would it be?
You have to be realistic. You have to avoid self-aggrandizement and be patient.
I'll leave it there.